Good evening. My name is Michelle Follett. My student number is 1084267, and this is my submission for assessment task number 2 for the subject EDU347, Teaching Junior Secondary English. I've constructed 3 sequential lesson plans for a grade 10 class that is currently reading through the text To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I've chosen to explore this literature in the context of a grade 10 classroom due to some of its more mature themes, such as the accusations of rape and the dehumanizing language in reference to African Americans and other minorities. In order to deal with these themes in a classroom, students do need to be able to employ a sense of maturity that can sometimes be lacking in some of the lower grades. Also, the Australian curriculum for English does require students in grade 10 to investigate a variety of texts that explore themes of human experience and ethical dilemmas, both of which are very strong themes in this novel. It also contains a substantial amount of figurative language and complex vocabulary, both of which are also requirements of the curriculum. Now, as To Kill a Mockingbird is a novel, the lessons focus on 3 specific steps when planning and writing in this genre. These are the conception of character, the setting of the scene, and creating the plot. Students will have the opportunity to investigate their own identity and those of the main characters of this novel through the use of identity charts that they complete in Lesson 1. In Lesson 2, the students investigate Harper Lee's use of figurative language to set the scene, and consider the ways figurative and descriptive language can create a new world in which a novel is written. By the 3rd lesson, the students should be able to develop their own characters and set their own scenes. And from here, we investigate the components that form a novel, such as the rising action, conflict, and falling actions through the creation of a storyboard strategy. Students will then be given the opportunity to plan their own novel and begin writing a chapter from their idea. Now, each of these lessons do link back to the ACARA curriculum through all 3 strands, being language, literature, and literacy. In this video presentation, I'll be exploring the use of identity charts as a teaching strategy when investigating characters in a novel, such as To Kill a Mockingbird. This lesson directly addresses 3 specific curriculum content descriptions. These are compare and evaluate a range of representations of individuals in different historical, social, and cultural contexts, analyze how people are represented in text through language choices, and understand how language can have an inclusive and exclusive social effect and can empower or disempower people. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to form opinions on their own identities and those of the characters in the novel, consider the ways descriptive language can be used to form a character's identity, and understand the various influences on a character's identity and the importance of character complexity when writing a novel. Now, the class begins with me introducing the topic by drawing a very simple outline of a person on the whiteboard and writing the word identity above it. I then give the students 2 minutes to discuss in very small groups what they think the term identity means and to consider the different components that make up a person's identity. They are encouraged to write down their key points before I ask a few students to share their thoughts. Now, as a class, we will all agree on components before the students that suggested each component comes up and writes their suggestion on the board. This is a very important part of the task as it gives the students collaborative ownership of the final product, which should hopefully look something like this. Students will also briefly discuss what stereotyping is and how this could affect a person's identity, as well as what other people say about a person and how this can empower and disempower a person. This orientating phase should only take about 15 minutes. From here, I ask students to draw their own outline of a person in their books. If they don't feel comfortable drawing a person, of course they are encouraged to just draw some sort of shape. Above it, they write the question, who am I? Now the students fill out this identity chart with aspects that they believe contribute to their identity. I believe this is a very important question for these students to be asking, especially at this age. This activity gives them the chance to really investigate the human condition, as well as practice with individual identity charts before applying them to the characters in this book. This part of the enhancing phase will take only about 5 minutes before we move on to creating identity charts for the main characters of To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, students are expected to have read at least chapters 1 to 3 of the novel, but in case some students haven't yet started, this activity is done in small groups so they can learn from each other and bring everyone up to speed. Now, I begin by distributing 1 A3 sheet of paper per small group, making sure that there are at least 3 small groups so as to cover the 3 main characters of the book and promote a good discussion at the end of the activity. The groups shouldn't be larger than 3 or 4, so in an average class you'll end up with about 8 to 10 groups. I then task each group with drawing another person on this A3 piece of paper and then writing the name of either Jem, Scout, or Atticus above it. They then have 20 minutes to fill in this identity chart together, finding excerpts from the book to support their claims about the character's identity. For example, in Chapter 1, the narrator Scout says she was almost 6 and Jem was almost 10. This gives us an idea about one component of their identity, their age, so we would write that out on the identity charts for them while making reference to where we found the information in the book, by page number or something like that. By the end of the 20 minutes, students should have a comprehensive chart for each of the characters. If a group feels they have finished their character to the best of their ability, I would then encourage them to start another chart for one of the secondary characters, such as Dill or Calpurnia. After they have finished that, each group will present to the class 2 of the key components they found in each character's identity, of course justifying their findings with reference to the text. In the last 10 minutes of the class, we'll finish off with a discussion of some key questions to ensure the student understanding. These questions bring focus back to the language used by the author to describe the characters and the importance of considering a character's identity when planning a novel. This gets the students thinking about what kind of character they could create and what kind of language they would use to form their identity, preparing them for the third lesson where they begin writing their chapters. Now, these lessons are of course not conclusive, and I wouldn't expect students to be able to produce a complete and structurally perfect novel by the end of the third class. However, the lessons do lay down foundational aspects of novel writing, and more specifically the planning that goes into this genre and the type of language that they could use to set the scene and create character complexity. The lessons also directly address several components of the Australian curriculum and improve the students' ability to write in this very complex genre. Thank you.